Welcome back. I've found a fascinating publication from the early 1900s called The Occult Review, a monthly magazine devoted to the investigation of supernormal phenomena and the study of psychological problems, edited by Ralph Shirley. The issues of this magazine are huge, and they're just packed with information and stories and essays of all kinds, and all the essays are fairly brief, so there's enough material here for me to make short episodes for the rest of my life if I wanted. We'll see how that goes, but I'm starting it off officially with an essay from Volume 3, Number 5, from May of 1906. Again, this is from The Occult Review. And this essay is called Witchcraft in Germany by Franz Hartmann. The Daily Telegraph of March 7th contains the following announcement. Trial for Witchcraft. Berlin, Tuesday. A trial for witchcraft which has just been held in the Upper Palatinate is attracting wide attention as a forcible illustration of the depths of ignorance and superstition in which large districts of southern Germany are still sunk. A farm laborer named Hermer was employed by a woman named Kobel to look after her horse. Hermer, however, neglected his duties, the horse became sick, and to excuse himself, Hermer asserted that the animal had been bewitched. Every morning he found it bathed in sweat, and with its mane and tail plaited by unearthly hands. He advised Frau Kobel to secure the services of a neighboring witch doctor, a certain Hartwig. At dead of night, Hartwig entered the stable, fixed a crucifix with 2 burning candles at the horse's head, wrote some mysterious letters on the wall with consecrated chalk, drew a magic circle round himself, opened his book, and began incantations in some unknown jargon. He shivered with the violence of his emotions, and after 3/4 of an hour revealed that the witch who had possessed the horse was a certain Frau Schaumburger. At the trial, the judge at first was not inclined to convict Hartwig, as he regarded the witch doctor as perfectly sincere, but on reflection he condemned him to 4 weeks' imprisonment as an impostor. Such trials for witchcraft are not very rare in Bavaria and the Tyrol, and they occasionally take place in other countries likewise. In the year 1836, a woman was tried for witchcraft at Hella, near Danzig, and thrown into the sea. As she did not sink immediately, her clothes keeping her afloat, they killed her with the oars. In Mothel, Palatinate, a young lady was arrested for witchcraft because they attributed to her doings the death of a calf in a stable while she was in the house. In 1807, a beggar was burnt alive for witchcraft in Mayenne, France. In June 1825, a poor old woman was thrown into a fire at Bournel, France, being accused of witchcraft. In Tarbes, France, a lady was burnt to death by advice of the priest who said she was a witch. In April 1826, an old woman suffered the same death at Mora, Belgium, because it was claimed that she had caused the death of several persons by means of witchcraft. In the county of Essex, England, an old man was tortured to death for being a sorcerer. See London Times of September 24, 1863. In 1874, a supposed witch was burnt alive at Yekaterinoda, Russia, and another at Comargo, Mexico, together with her infant brother in 1860. The most modern trial for witchcraft is perhaps the trial of Jeanne Weber, which took place in Paris on January 30th, 1906. In this case, it seems that this Jeanne Weber was actually possessed by some evil power unknown to herself, which caused a number of children to die by her touch. There is no doubt that the great majority of those who were tried for witchcraft or sorcery were entirely innocent. Some of these may have been unconscious mediums or hysterical and obsessed people, But the important part of the question is whether there exists at present really such a thing as black magic, witchcraft, and sorcery, whether consciously or unconsciously exercised. And this I am ready to affirm, for not only have several cases of undoubted black magic come to my knowledge in Italy, but such things as are mentioned in the article of the Daily Telegraph have happened in my own family. My brother-in-law, Count A.V.S., was captain in the Bavarian cavalry, Chevaux Légers, and lives at present at S after having retired from service. Some years ago, while on duty, he noticed that one of his horses was sickly, and the groom reported that he found it every morning bathed in sweat and with its mane and tail plaited in a most unaccountable way. The Count, being a total unbeliever in things unnatural, made up his mind to investigate the matter, and so he spent the night in the stable watching the horse. Everything seemed all right, but at about 2 a.m., a sudden tremor shook the horse, and in a moment its mane and tail was plaited in a most intricate manner, and the animal became covered with sweat. Concerning the bewitching of cattle and horses, the possibility of it is believed in, or, to express it more correctly, known to almost every peasant in Bavaria and Austria, especially in the mountainous districts, where the farmers will often refuse to permit a stranger to enter their stable unless he pronounces a blessing. If a cow is bewitched, the milk soon after the milking turns dark blue and emits a putrid odor, rendering it unfit for use. Such a case happened at the dairy of my sister at her residence at S, near Munich. The case has been described in my book on Paracelsus, and I will repeat the particulars. At a farmhouse in the vicinity of the castle of S, where my sister lives, the milk one day became blue. After having been deposited in the usual place, it began to darken, became light blue, and that color after a while deepened into an almost inky black, while the layer of cream on the top exhibited zigzag lines. Soon the whole mass began to putrefy and to emit a horrible odor. This occurred again and again every day, and the farmer was in despair. Everything was tried to find out the cause of the trouble. The stable was thoroughly cleaned and disinfected. The place where the milk was kept was changed. New pails were bought. A different kind of food given to the cows. Samples of the milk were sent to the university professors to be examined by chemists. Veterinary surgeons were called in, and everything possible was done without any effect. At last my sister, hearing of these things and being incredulous, went to the farm for the purpose of investigating the matter. She took with her a clean new bottle and filled it with the milk directly from the cow. This she took home with her and deposited it in her pantry. On the following day her cows became bewitched, and their milk became blue, while the trouble in the house of the neighbor ceased. Now again, everything possible was tried to find out the cause, but without any success. University professors and veterinary surgeons came and examined and went away as wise as before, and the trouble continued for about 3 months. Finally, my brother-in-law was advised to apply to an old woman reputed to be able to cure such things. She lived at K, about 300 miles distant. The Count went to see her and told her about this affair, whereupon she wrote certain signs upon slips of paper and gave them to him, asking him to put one of these slips over each opening in the stable, and told him that soon after that something curious would happen. My brother-in-law followed her advice, and a couple of days afterwards, as the milkmaid went to the dairy in the morning before sunrise, carrying a lantern, when she opened the stable door, something like a black animal of the size of a big dog rushed out, knocking the milk pail and lantern out of her hands and disappearing. After this event, all was right again. Another similar case happened about 2 years ago at Berchtesgaden, Bavaria. In this case, the owner of the cattle accused one of his neighbors of having bewitched his cows, but as he could not prove it, he had to pay a fine for defamation of character. Those who do not believe in magic and obsession may consider these stories incredible, but for my part, I am satisfied that the said troubles had occult causes, and I know that there are still forces existing in nature whose qualities and activity are not yet recognized by the world in general. And that was it for that essay short and to the point. And just to pad things out a little bit, I'll read one more essay from the same issue. Just a very brief 2-page essay, also keeping with a German theme. It's called A Memory by A.S.P. I have always been conscious from my earliest childhood of living, as it were, in two lives, one a grown-up sort of life in which I understood things which a child of my age could by no possibility have any knowledge of, and the other the present-day life in which, I suppose, I was a most ordinary little mortal. At that time, I believe, I had a sort of recollection or picture of myself as a man with a beard, and I seemed to be married to someone to whom I was occasionally very unkind. But as I grew older, to 12 or 13 perhaps, the man with the beard no longer figured in my visions, and instead I seemed to catch fleeting glimpses of a red-roofed village, a hill with an apple tree on its summit, and under the apple tree a seat, a girl with fair hair and a blue dress, and a forest mostly of pine trees. The person in this picture who seemed to represent me was, however, still a man, and evidently the lover of the girl in the blue dress. I began to write poetry in the approved German style, very sentimental and sad and full of graves under linden trees, broken hearts, etc. It had been borne in upon me that the village in my mind was somewhere in Germany, South Germany, though how I arrived at that conclusion I really do not know, as at that time I had never visited the country, and being Irish by birth could hardly have felt any instinctive sympathy with the German race. When I was 21, I spent 2 months in North Germany with a friend. My sister, who knew of my idea that I had passed a previous incarnation in that country, was quite excited about my going there. "If you pick up the language very quickly," she said, "it may be a sign that you were once a German." As a matter of fact, the ease and rapidity with which I learned the language was a source of amazement to everybody, certainly including myself. Moreover, the vague, unsettled sort of feeling which had increased of late years, the undefined longings after something or someone more familiar to me than my present surroundings, now became at times almost unbearable. The sight of the old Gothic houses in the town where my friend and I were staying, and ours especially at sunset, the sound of voices singing one of the old folk songs which the peasants have sung about their work, or in the evenings over their pipes and beer for many generations, brought back the feeling so keenly that I could have cried for very loneliness. Sometimes I tried to write a description of the places that I saw in my memory. Often I tried to see more distinctly the face that seemed to haunt me, but when I began to write I could never be sure how much was actual remembrance and how much imagination. There was a voice that haunted me too. Not the voice of any friend or acquaintance I had ever known in my present life, but at times it was quite distinct. It seemed as though someone were trying to send me a message, and to know this, yet not to know who or where that person might be, was maddening. A few months after my return from Germany, I met for the first time the man whom I afterwards married. Almost directly I saw his face, I experienced a curious sensation of familiarity. When I heard his voice, however, my doubts were all at an end. They were the face and the voice that had haunted me so long. I am aware that my story is an imperfect one. It would be far more effective were I able to describe a visit to some little red-roofed village in South Germany. The gradual dawning of memory, the recognition of the identical hill, apple tree, seat, and forest. But alas, I have never yet had the opportunity to explore the villages of that country and so to prove my case. Passing through Thuringia in the train a year or two ago, I certainly became wildly excited every time a red-roofed village showed itself among the forests, and from time to time little incidents have reminded me of the visions that came to me in my childhood, but that is all. Skeptics tell me that my visions were all imagination, but I am very sure that this is not so. If they had been the result of imagination, certainly I should not have beheld myself as anything so uninteresting as a German peasant. I dislike Germans, and should be sorry to think I had any German blood in my veins. Therefore, if I had merely come to believe in my previous incarnation because I wished to do so, should I have chosen Germany as the country above all others in which to have spent that incarnation? Someday, I hope to have the opportunity to visit and thoroughly explore the Black Forest, Bavaria, and other parts of South Germany, and perhaps, after that investigation, I shall have something more to tell. Who knows? Well, that was odd. The whole magazine is odd, and we'll be coming back to it again in future episodes. Bye for now. See you next time.